نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن ربي يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء من عباده ويقدر له وما أنفقتم من شيء فهو يخلفه وهو خير الرازقين ويوم يحشرهم جميعا ثم يقول للملائكة أهؤلاء إياكم كانوا يعبدون قالوا سبحانك أنت ولينا من دونهم بل كانوا يعبدون الجن أكثرهم بهم مؤمنون فاليوم لا يملك بعضكم لبعض نفعا ولا ضرا ونقول للذين ظلموا ذوقوا عذاب النار التي كنتم بها تكذبون. Respectful and dear friends, in the opening verse that has been recited, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed a very similar verse which we had covered in last week's tafsir. That in last week's tafsir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned a misconception of the disbelievers. And their misconception was, they assumed that because they have been given abundance of wealth and children, so that was an indication, a sign that they are accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they had taken their material status as an indication that this is what draws them close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that they will be saved from the punishment of Allah ta'ala. And had Allah ta'ala wanted to punish them, Allah ta'ala would not have given them such wealth in abundance. So on that occasion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the verse last week, in verse 36, Allah ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنَّ رَبِّي يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَقْدِرُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. That say, verily my Rabb increases sustenance for whoever He wills. And in the opening verse that we recited now, in it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنَّ رَبِّي يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ وَيَقْدِرُ لَهُ. That say, indeed my Rabb increases sustenance لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ for whoever He wills مِنْ عِبَادِهِ of His bondsmen, and وَيَقْدِرُ لَهُ and decreases for him, meaning whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُ and whatever good you spend, He will replace it, as وَهُوَ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ He is the best of providers. The verse is very similar to the verse that was covered in last week's tafsir. But there is a difference as well. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after mentioning that قُلْ إِنَّ رَبِّي يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ, Allah ta'ala here in this verse includes مِنْ عِبَادِهِ of His bondsmen. And in the previous verse was just وَيَقْدِرُ, and here is وَيَقْدِرُ لَهُ. That was case of whoever He wills and decreases, and He is and He decreases for him. The difference between the two verses is that in the previous verse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that as in the general form, that all creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it is human, non-humans, Allah ta'ala gives rizq to every creation of His. And here it is with regards to insan. And the other difference is that there it was with regards to those who had assumed that their wealth and their children will grant them closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, referring to the disbelievers. And here in this verse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically mentions and specifies it with min ibadihi, with His bondsmen. Meaning this is the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to who? To His bondsmen. That whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to from His bondsmen, meaning from His servants, He increases them in their rizq. And وَيَقْدِرُ لَهُ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever He wants to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreases for him. If it is ibadihi, His servants, then for him increasing in the rizq that Allah ta'ala gives is a bounty of His. And for those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreases, and this is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to see how much sabr this person endures. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for one it is a bounty, and not that for the one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may decrease for him his sustenance. It is not any adab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but for that individual is also a ni'mat. For one there is the ni'mat and the bounty of making shukr on the increase of rizq Allah ta'ala has given, and for the other is the bounty of the ability to do sabr upon it, if he does do sabr upon it, and gets the reward for it accordingly. And then here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, which is specific for who? For those who have iman from His min ibadihi, and that is that وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُ. This is a very important part of this verse. That Allah Ta'ala says that that وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم, that whatever you spend, min shay'in, meaning of whatever good wealth you spend, that فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace it. What does that mean? It means that when a person spends here in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that spending in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not gone to waste. When a person gives in charity, or understand it this way, when a person spends upon themselves or other people with regards to the material of this world, you see the rewards of that spending. You go to a store and you have 50 pounds with you and you spend that 50 pounds, you're not going to come out with an empty trolley. You spend unless you do spend that on bingo cards or something, then you will come out with an empty trolley. So you spend the 50 pounds, you've got something to show that look, there's something here, this is where. So you know that look, money well spent, people will say. Why? Because they can see what they have spent it on. But then when a person gives in charity, at that time there is a collection in the masjid, there is a lillah box and you put in that money, whatever 50 pounds in that lillah box. You're not seeing anything. Because when you put that 50 pounds in the masjid lillah box, when you depart, when you leave from the masjid, you've left from the empty-handed. You're 50 pounds short. When you come out from the supermarket, you won't say you're 50 pounds short because this, you might be 50 pounds short in cash, but you've got 50 pounds worth of products and goods there. But when you give that 50 pounds in a masjid, you'll come out saying, look, I'm 50 pounds lighter now and I haven't got anything to show, isn't it? There's nothing there. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that isn't the case. Because that وَمَا أَنفَقْتُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. That is the way you give that 50 pounds and the shop will give you whatever you purchased. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also replace that 50 pounds for you as well. And He's replacing that 50 pounds. It's not like us giving 50 pounds, paying 50 pounds, and receiving only 50 pounds worth of goods. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's reward for that is much more, and it is much more valuable. Because whatever we purchase here in this world, we're going to utilize. If it's food, then that's gone before you know. If it's something else, you'll wear something and for a few years you'll wear it after that. That's going to also then be replaced. So not whatever we spend on here is not going to remain forever. And that which we spend for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reward of that is much more. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces that which we have spent with what? With the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that reward is both here in this world and in the hereafter. Not just in the hereafter, but here in this world as well as the hereafter. The hereafter, of course, is the best place that a person will want that reward, because that is where it is much more valuable for a person. Allah Ta'ala gives us the reward here. We can benefit of it here. But again, it is only for a period of time. More than that is what we want, is the reward that Allah Ta'ala gives in the hereafter. And in the hadith, Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala mentions that when a person spends in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that little even that a person gives, in the court of Allah, in the hereafter, Allah Ta'ala takes that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then increases in that. Increases in that, just the way Nabi Kareem gives an example of what a cub or a lamb, and then you look after it, it becomes a fully grown animal. So in this way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is like a date pit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala nurtures it, increases it until it becomes the size of a mountain. Meaning how much increase Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does in it. And that increase is much more than what tenfold is just the minimum that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases upon it here. That which we've given here, the increase of it is minimum tenfold in the hereafter. And when we go in the hereafter, that's when we won't be taking our accounts and our bank cards with us in the hereafter. That when the angels, or when we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what have you got to put on the mizan, on the scales, you're going to say, Allah, is it contactless or not? So you're not going to be able to then put your bank card on there, or your pay on your phone and take that of Allah Ta'ala brought with me, so thousands with me. So that is something you're not going to take of here. But what you spend here is what you have sent over there. So a person is not losing out on anything at all. On one occasion, a sheep or a lamb had been given in charity, and then when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha as to what is left of that animal, to which she said, there is nothing left of it but the shin. There is only the shin, that part that is left of it. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no. Baqiya kulluhu, that everything is left but the shin instead. Mean the opposite. Mean that which you have left here, you're saying that this is left. No. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that whatever you have given in charity, that is baqi, that is still in existence. That which you've kept with you, which is still existing, that does not exist. But that which you have already spent is actually what is still available, because you have spent that in a place wherein it is not going to finish at all. And a way to understand this is that there are many people who build a home, back home, for instance, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or where else. And what they do is they will send money from here every so often they're sending money overseas and they spend it. So when they send that money, it will mean that they are depriving themselves of that amount here, whilst they can use it for their own homes here. But instead they're sending it over. But when they do send it over, nobody feels they do not find that hard or difficult, because they know that we're sending it over and it's going, we're not seeing it here, the fruits of it here, but we're seeing there is something being developed for us somewhere else. And then when we go there, we will see where the money has been spent. So we know that all we're doing is we're transferring it and sending it over from one place to another place. Whatever a person spends in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is exactly what a person is doing. They're just transferring it to what? To the hereafter. So you may not see it here, but you will definitely see it in the hereafter. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُ. That whatever good you spend, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces it. Which means that whatever is spent in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not only just spent in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, But whatever a person uses here in this world, the more it is used and spent, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases it. Very important point here. People will do what people will ration. And people will fear, the world governments fear, that the human population will outstrip food production. And that is a major concern that people have. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that isn't the case. Because وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. That whatever is spent, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then replaces that. Meaning that whatever, and especially here when it comes to believers. One example, look at cattle. As Muslims, we during the time of Qurbani itself, during time of Hajj, just imagine how many animals are slaughtered just during those days. And then it isn't that Muslims only eat meat during those days and throughout the year they become vegetarians. So for why? That now we need to ration because there's going to be a shortage of livestock, of cattle. So give them another year till the next Hajj and Qurbani so that then you can eat meat. But no, we eat enough meat throughout the year as well. But alhamdulillah, there is no shortage. And no Hajj year do you find that there is any shortage. No Qurbani time do you find that you told, look, there is a shortage of animals. Why? Because وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces it. Allah ta'ala replaces it. And not only is animals slaughtered for the sake of eating, for Hajj it is slaughtered, for Qurbani it is slaughtered, but then there is other penalties as well that a person does, there's sadaqah as well that a person does. So you slaughter it for many reasons. Whereas the production of these animals, whether it's cows or goats and lambs, are so different to other creations of Allah ta'ala. A cat or a dog, when a cat and a dog gives birth, it doesn't just give one at a time, it will give many. There are many, even 6, 7, 9 even at one time. But one cow will only give birth to one calf. But more is 2. So the production is much less, but still there is no shortage of cattle at all. And other cats and dogs and what else, their population may shrink unless people start eating them. Their population may shrink, but that which we spend on and which we eat here in this way, that does not shrink. Similarly with regards to all forms of vegetables and everything that we spend on, why we spend on that is because when a person spends on his family in doing what? In providing for them, this is also sadaqah. So when a husband or a breadwinner goes to do the shopping as well, as long as there's no israf in it and goes and buys whatever the needs and necessities are of the family, then this is also sadaqah. So that is also spending in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whatever you buy then as well, and whatever is utilized in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is always increased. Just a child who is dependent on the mother's milk, as long as the child is dependent on the mother's milk, milk is produced. And when the child isn't no longer in need of it, then that milk dries up and the mother will not produce milk. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, meaning insan should not worry with regards to that aspect. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces it. But you will find in the world as well, for example, even in Arab lands, in the Middle East, where once upon a time they were very dependent upon camels, and when they were very dependent upon camels, there was no deficiency in camels, there was enough camels. But now you find that when they are not in need of so many camels, they do not make use of camels, then camels, the population of camels have also naturally decreased. You go to India as well, the population of cows will be much less than maybe in Pakistan or Bangladesh. And the reason for that is because there is restrictions on the slaughtering of cows, because of which the production of that also decreases compared to other places wherein those animals are sacrificed and slaughtered, the population of those will increase. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here mentions. Yes, if Allah Ta'ala wants to, maybe as a form of punishment, Allah Ta'ala can seize the production of various sustenance, if Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala desires. Because here Allah Ta'ala is saying that قُلْ إِنَّ رَبِّي يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ. So it's not just spending, it is rizq that Allah Ta'ala is mentioning here. So Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, whatever insan needs, we use water as well. We use so much water, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala sends so much water as well. So there are so many things that we are using day and night, day and night. And just imagine how much the population, all the creation of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala are utilizing. Then too, there is no deficiency at all. Yes, if Allah Ta'ala wants to, there will be the punishment of Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala seizes things in that manner. There may be the wrongdoings of insan, human beings. And by that, maybe there may be deficiency. So if you may wonder that why are our supermarkets empty and why are the shelves empty there, this is not because of the system of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. This is just whatever they've got wrong in Brexit or whatever else it may be, or blame whatever else. It is that which has gone wrong and not in the qudrat of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Just look at the entire population. And such a rich country and such an advanced country finds himself in this situation. You go to a poor country and walk there and you find enough tomatoes. Enough vegetables, no deficiency, no empty markets there at all. They don't have supermarkets. They'll have a person standing there with this small stall with all the vegetables you want. And they'll have fresh daily there. Poor countries and poor people are enjoying the tomatoes without any rationing on them. And those in such advanced country are fighting for these type of things or are having to do without it. This is a nizam of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala is showing as well how Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala how Allah Ta'ala can turn the tables round as well. So وَمَا أَنفَقْتُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُ. And when it comes to just the normal sadaqah that a person does, that too. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the hadith of Sahih Muslim, Nabi mentions that daily there are angels who proclaim in the morning and they make dua to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala that Allahumma aati munfikan khalafan wa aati mumsikan talafan. Wherein they make dua to Allah Ta'ala and they proclaim that Allah increase, give in return to the one who spends, and Allah destroy for the one who upholds. Meaning Allahumma aati munfikan khalafan, the munfiq. Meaning Allah, the one who spends, give him a replacement to that which he has spent. That whatever he spends, give him more upon that. So you spend, more you get. So it isn't a case of you're 10 pounds short, you're 50 pounds short now. No, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, if we have the yaqeen that look for yukhlifuhu, Allah Ta'ala will replace that 50 pounds. And people will have their own experiences that a person may give in charity 50 pounds or so, and then what happens? That somebody gives them 50 pounds hadiyah. Somebody gives them 50 pounds hadiyah maybe. Or 50 pounds increase comes from somewhere. Or they manage to save 50 pounds from their usual spending in that. Or maybe somebody owed them 50 pounds. And they now had written off that this person is not going to give it back. And before they know, this person comes and gives it back to them. From somewhere or the other it comes. And if it doesn't come directly in the form of a 50 pound note, then it comes where Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will give them 50 pounds worth of barakat in their sustenance. That they will find themselves in a position wherein any unnecessary or undue expenditure which could have come about their way, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala saves them from that. Because that is what barakat is. And where barakat is taken away from a person is when one after the other, something comes up, something keeps coming up, so that whatever person is earning is just going. Whatever person is earning is just going. And barakat is wherein Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala protects a person from that. Not that there won't be any expenditure, but when the expenditure comes, they are able to carry out that expenditure and they are still fine and they still have something with them. So Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gives a replacement in this way. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned the hadith as well. Unfiq alayk. Spend and Allah Ta'ala will spend upon you. Elsewhere Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to him, Bilal, ya Bilal, unfiq, spend. وَلَا تَخْشَى مِنْ ذِي الْأَرْشِ إِقْلَالٍ. That, O Bilal, spend and do not fear from the one who, the owner of the arsh, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not fear poverty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to deprive you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Zul Arsh. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is possessed of everything, so do not fear. Do not fear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you spend in the way of Allah ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will then, that you will lose out. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the giver. Allah ta'ala will definitely give you. As well as Nabi sallallahu ta'ala sallam mentioned Sayyidina Asma radiallahu ta'ala anha as well, that give and give openly, wala tuwi. Give and give in such a manner that do not start doing the sums. Do not start doing the sums, and do not keep on tying the knot of your purse, that you give very stingily and you give very little in such a manner. But give openly, give full-heartedly, and give generously. And the more generous you're going to be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be generous with you as well. Now this does not mean that a person should do what? A person just gives everything away every time and they're left with nothing at all. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says as well that the best of sadaqah la zahil ghina. That the best form of sadaqah is when a person spends in a manner in which he's still left with something, rather than spending in such a manner that he's nothing at all. And if he then ends up with nothing at all, and then he's got nothing to feed himself and his children, then what will happen is that if he gets an opportunity of spending another time, he won't want to spend now, because he'll remember the time that he spent and he had nothing at all, and then the reaction at home and what else came about with it. So that will put him off from spending. So he'll spend once in his life and that's it, he won't do it again. So a person should not spend in that way, but in such a way that that he has left something behind for those who hukuk are dependent upon. But the usul and the principle here is that وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. That whatever you spend wealth in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but this is when here min shay'in refers towards whatever, وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم refers towards whatever good you spend. It doesn't mean for haram, if you spend in israf or you spend in the haram avenues, then you spend there, because you're spending there as well. There, for yukhlifu won't be the case. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace that. It means where a person spends in the right place. And the right place, as I mentioned, besides the charities, and that is, whatever a person spends upon himself, upon his family as well, even that is included in it. And Jabir bin Abdullah mentions that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions that save spending also includes what? It also includes when a person spends in order to save his face, to save his honor. The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala inquired, what does that mean, that you spend to save your honor? When Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam replied that even if it means that you spend somewhere, where didn't you know? If you had not spent there, then people would torment you that look, he didn't spend on somewhere, or on a person that he was meant to spend on. So he just did it so in order to save his face. But that too as well is included in good spending in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in saving his honor. That a person will say, look, he didn't give at this occasion, he didn't spend upon his family members, or he didn't give. So to save yourself from that embarrassment is also a good form of spending. So whatever a person spends in this way, فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. And when this financial crisis began as well, something I had been mentioned a couple of times, that look, people are struggling, we know for sure, and people are worried with regards to their finances and their home situations and that. And if we want that to get better on an individual basis, then this is what we need to do. وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. Without giving everything away, but still give charity. Even if it means that it is a little, but give in the right cause. Why? Because Allah Ta'ala is going to give you, He's going to replace that, and have that yaqeen that look, you're not going to miss out on it. You give that, Allah will replace you. It will give you in dunya as well, and Allah Ta'ala will give you in the hereafter as well. If you do not see it in this world, you'll see it in the hereafter. But barakat is something for sure. Barakat is for sure that a person will give. And people will have their own experiences. There is one individual a local Musalli, and this was a couple of years ago, alhamdulillah, he on off, he donates in Ramadan as well. He donates, and he's not what you regard to be somebody that, okay, this is a very wealthy person or a businessman. He's a labor. He goes to work in that. And he mentions himself that before he never really used to come to the masjid, so spend on the masjid, but now that he does, and he gives quite generously as well. And he said that since he started giving generously, he himself has noticed so much barakat. He has himself noticed so much barakat. And he says as well, there is so much barakat, and because of the barakat, I am able to give so generously as well. And he said that this was not the case prior when I was not able to give or wasn't given giving. That time I didn't have, and now that I am giving, I found that there is so much barakat that I am able to give so much, and there is so much left as well. And then from that he said himself that he's been able to, he's gone for Hajj, he's gone for Umrah, and they've done this and they've done that as well. And also be able to give a good amount for as lil and sadaqah as well. And this one individual, people will have their own experiences as well. So at moments of this type of financial crisis, this is also a way out of it, that a person, even if it is, as I mentioned, just a little that you can give that little as well, it will go away. So just the way you budget everything, put something aside just for the sake of sadaqah, and see how فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace that. Why? Because وَهُوَ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is who? Allah ta'ala is the best of providers. Allah ta'ala is خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. And this is what we as believers should think of. And alhamdulillah, Allah ta'ala is what? Allah ta'ala is our Allah after all. And we have this yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the difference between a believer and a non-believer. That whenever there is any crisis, whether it was COVID, whether it's some other plague or other illness, the manner in which a believer thinks and a non-believer thinks is very different. There are those who are just dependent upon science, medicine, statistics and whatnot. For a believer, they have more than those things, and that is who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a believer is one that who will always be content, because his ideas are different. His thoughts are different. A person who does not believe, for them it is always going to be what? That look, I caught this disease because I met so and so. That person gave me that disease, and he became the means of me becoming ill, or so and so becoming ill, or so and so dying. Whereas for a believer always knows that no, it's not that person who I caught it from. They didn't pass it on to me. That was just a means, but it came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As one Bedouin said to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that, O Nabi of Allah, I have a camel, and this camel is like a deer meaning perfect, beautiful camel. And there's nothing wrong with it. And then another camel which has a disease, that camel comes into the stock, and that gives the illness as well, and passes on the illness to this camel, and this camel then becomes ill as well. Which was a beautiful, healthy camel, and that has become ill. To which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, fine, then who gave the illness to the first camel? Who gave the illness to the first camel? So where did that come from? So a believer always knows that. Similarly, a believer, when he has risk, and when he has a job, or he has something, he achieves something, he knows that look, it is not dependent upon his own doings, it is dependent upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a non-believer, they'll always be, morning and evening, they'll just be anxious and they'll just be worked up as in, what is wrong with my CV? What is going wrong in my job interviews? Why am I not getting that job? Why am I not getting any work? And a believer, that he knows that look, it is not just dependent upon his CV, and it doesn't mean that now you go with blank paper and say, this is my CV. Allah will give me the job if He wants it. If it's meant for me, just give a blank paper and Allah Ta'ala will give it to me. Allah Ta'ala can do that. But that's not the system of this world. Allah Ta'ala has created a system and you follow that system. For a non-believer, perfect CV and that's given, and then after that he's rejected, he becomes suicidal. Not understanding that what's gone wrong. For a believer, he knows that look, I did whatever was best, my qualifications are there, everything is there. But I didn't get it. Why? Because it was not meant for me. So he finds that comfort in knowing that, look, it wasn't in my muqaddar, something else will be in my muqaddar, that's why. He'll go somewhere else and maybe there as well. He'll never lose hope because he knows that, look, wherever I have gone to are those places which isn't in my muqaddar, it isn't in my destiny, and I will get what is in my destiny. And for a non-believer, everything is just based upon all those asbab that are there, and just that CV that is there, that how and why, what's happening here and that. And for a believer, that is not the case. Again here with regards to rizq as well. For a believer, he knows that, look, whatever rizq is meant for us, that is the amount of rizq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give us. So if we give in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are not reducing from our rizq. That rizq of ours is not going to be reduced. Just the way a believer, one of the qualities of a believer, as the Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned in many hadiths, Nabi has mentioned the importance of what? I.T.A. That feed people. And part of feeding people is that you entertain guests. And a conjuice, a stingy person is one who will never spend on himself, never mind spending on others. He won't spend on himself, so he's not going to spend or want to spend on others. And won't even want any guest to come to his house as well. And if any guests come, tea is okay, that they come for tea, but not for the meat. Because he is now worried now we're going to have to cook, and how many people are coming? So we're going to have to cook for them. So he thinks to himself that, look, if there's going to be 5 people coming, 6 people coming, then it's a case of 6 people's worth of ration is going to be reduced from my household. So he worries about that, isn't it? That if he's going to entertain them with rice, then it's a case of 2 cups of rice, 3 cups of rice, he's going to lose out on that and whatever else ingredients, and he starts looking at that. Kandus, that's what a kandus does, you see. And that is how their mind works as well. That when they already in their mind will work out exactly how much oil and how much touch, loving and what else, whatever, everything they already there, how much that's how a kandus works. I'm not speaking out of experience, but this is how a kandus works. That's why in Urdu they say makki juice, isn't it? Makki juice meaning that person was so stingy. Makki juice means to suck on a fly. This one kandus, and that's why it's called makki juice, is that he had a cup of tea and a fly fell in the tea. So when a fly fell in the tea, so what did he do? He didn't even want to lose out that amount of tea. So that what did he do? He squeezed the tea out of the fly as well. So this is how a stingy person is, you see. So they will look at it this way. Whereas a true believer thinks this way, that look, that mehman, that guest has come, he has come with her own risk. He is not taken from your quota at all. And otherwise what will happen? Everybody will say, no, sorry, close doors. We're not going to invite anybody at all because we're going to, over the years of a person's lifespan, you're going to miss out on so much food. But you're not giving from your stomach. You're not giving from your food at all. It is what was theirs, which was written on your dasrakhan. So they bring their own risk with them. That bag of rice you had, and that amount which went for them was meant for them. It wasn't for you. That's why it's just that their risk was written here at your house. Otherwise it's theirs. So each person will get the risk that is meant for them. So the way out of a financial crisis is spend in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, we understand people may not be able to give as much, but still give. And the other is we have the best attitude in what? Surah Waqi'ah. To recite Surah Waqi'ah in the evening before a good person goes to sleep. Recite Surah Waqi'ah. What more do you want? And the way out, try that whoever is suffering should practice giving in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that of Surah Waqi'ah, that whoever recites it in the evening after Maghrib, that household will never face poverty. So when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that, and we have yaqeen in that, and that is definitely the case, that household will not have poverty. And yes, there may be tests that come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that could be a test from Allah ta'ala. It could be that there is something we are doing wrong. It is something we are doing wrong as well. That's why we're spending so much on haram. We're spending so much on israf. We're spending so much on unnecessary things. And when that is the case, you're going to be out of pocket. So think about those things as well. Cut down on those things, stop those things which are haram. Israf, cut down on that, which is haram, stop all those spending. And then a person will see how the barakat will come into the household as well. We had read the following verses as well, but we'll leave that for next week. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here mentions, very important, always remember this, whenever you have the opportunity of spending on family, on yourself, in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is very general, where you can give, وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you give here, immediately is replaced it there in your account of the akhirat, multiplied so much more. And Allah ta'ala gives it here for you as well, because He is وَهُوَ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. Nobody can give how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, so He is the best of providers. Allah ta'ala grant us all understanding. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ سُبْحَانَ رَبِّكَ رَبِّ الْعِزَّةِ عَمَّا يَصِفُونَ وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ.